Rosie's rocket to the moon. Rosie was an inventor. Not just any inventor. She was a dreamer, and her dreams were as big as the night sky. Rosie lived in a small town where nothing much happened, but that didn't bother her. Every night, she would look up at the moon from her bedroom window and dream about flying there one day. Rosie had been building things for as long as she could remember. She made toy cars out of soda cans, robots out of old kitchen gadgets, and even a working radio from a box of spare parts. But none of these inventions were big enough for her newest dream, building a rocket ship to fly to the moon. One afternoon, Rosie's father found her sitting in the backyard, surrounded by piles of cardboard, metal scraps, and tools. "What are you up to, Rosie?" he asked with a smile. "I'm going to build a rocket ship," Rosie said matter-of-factly, wiping sweat from her brow. "To the moon?" her father asked, raising an eyebrow. "To the moon," Rosie exclaimed. "And maybe even farther." Her father chuckled. "Well, if anyone can do it, it's you." With that, Rosie got to work. She gathered all the supplies she could find. Old boxes, pipes, a large tin can for the rocket's nose, and some powerful-looking fireworks for the engines. It wasn't easy, but Rosie was determined. For days, she measured, cut, glued, and hammered. Slowly but surely, her rocket ship took shape. It was a tall, colorful creation, covered in silver foil with big red fins. She painted stars on the sides and even added a flag with her name on it, Rosie's Rocket. The final touch was a control panel made of buttons, levers, and flashing lights she had salvaged from an old arcade game. Finally, after days of hard work, Rosie stood back and admired her rocket. It was ready. She packed a lunch, peanut butter sandwiches, an apple, and a thermos of hot chocolate, grabbed her space helmet, and climbed into the cockpit. "Countdown to liftoff," she whispered, adjusting the levers. 10, 9, 8. Her heart raced with excitement as she pulled the big red lever to ignite the engines. The fireworks beneath the rocket roared to life, and with a loud whoosh, Rosie's rocket lifted off the ground. Up, up, up it soared, higher and higher into the sky. The wind whipped through Rosie's hair, and she held on tight as her rocket sped past the clouds. The houses and trees below grew smaller and smaller until they disappeared altogether. "I'm really flying," Rosie shouted, her eyes wide with wonder. Soon, she was surrounded by stars, millions of twinkling lights filling the dark sky. The earth below looked like a tiny blue marble, and the moon loomed large and glowing ahead of her. Rosie steered the rocket toward the moon, her hands trembling with excitement. As she got closer, she could see the moon's craters and mountains. It was even more beautiful than she had imagined. Finally, with a gentle thud, Rosie's rocket landed on the moon. She unbuckled her seatbelt, grabbed her lunchbox, and stepped out onto the dusty, rocky surface. "I did it," she whispered, gazing at the earth far away in the sky. "I'm on a moon." Rosie explored the moon's surface, jumping high into the air with every step. The low gravity made her feel as light as a feather. She picked up moon rocks, drew her name in the moon dust, and even planted her flag right in the middle of a crater. After a while, Rosie sat down on a large moon rock and opened her lunchbox. She munched on her peanut butter sandwiches, sipping hot chocolate as she looked up at the stars. Everything was quiet and peaceful. It felt like she was the only person in the universe. But then, something unexpected happened. As Rosie was finishing her lunch, she heard a soft humming sound. She looked around, but no one was there. The humming grew louder, and suddenly, a tiny door opened in the side of a nearby crater. Out stepped a group of small, round aliens, each with big, bright eyes and little antennas on their heads. Rosie's eyes widened in surprise. "Hello," she called out, waving. The aliens blinked and waved back, their antennas wiggling excitedly. They floated over to Rosie, giggling and humming in a friendly way. "Do you live here?" Rosie asked, curious. The aliens nodded, and one of them pointed to Rosie's rocket. "Oh, that's my rocket," Rosie said proudly. "I built it myself to fly to the moon." The aliens looked impressed. They began buzzing around the rocket, inspecting every detail with interest. One of them reached out and gently tapped a button on the control panel, making the lights flash and beep. Rosie laughed. "Do you want to take a ride?" The aliens hummed excitedly, nodding their little heads. Rosie climbed back into the rocket, making room for the aliens to squeeze in beside her. They fit perfectly, and soon they were all strapped in and ready for liftoff. "Ready for the adventure of a lifetime?" Rosie asked, her fingers hovering over the controls. The aliens wiggled their antennas in excitement. With a pull of the lever, the rocket roared to life once more, and together, Rosie and her new alien friends zoomed across the stars. They flew around the moon, explored the rings of Saturn, and even did a loop around the red planet, Mars. The universe was full of wonders, and Rosie felt like she could explore forever. Eventually, though, it was time to return home. Rosie landed the rocket safely back in her backyard, where her father was waiting. "How is the moon, Rosie?" her father asked with a knowing smile. Rosie grinned from ear to ear. "It was amazing. And guess what? I made some new friends." The aliens waved from the rocket, their antennas wiggling happily. "Well, I guess it's true what they say," her father chuckled. "The sky isn't the limit. It's just the beginning." Rosie nodded, her heart full of excitement. She knew this was only the start of her adventures. With her imagination and her rocket, there was no telling where she'd go next. And as she lay in bed that night, staring up at the moon from her window, she couldn't wait for her next journey, wherever the stars might take her.